Welcome to the Low Carb USA podcast, where we seek to inspire you to help us build this community. I'm Doug Reynolds.
And this is Pam Devine. Okay. All right. So hello, everyone. We have a very special guest with us today, Tracey McBeath. She's the health and healing coach. She's in Melbourne, Australia. Tracey, remind me again, you have an upcoming summit. Are you calling it the Low Carb Lifestyle Men's Summit, or how are you doing that again?
I wasn't sure if I should just call it the same thing, but I've decided to go with Men's Health Matters series. So it's a little different to the women's health ones that I've done. And the Low Carb Lifestyle Long Weekend is what they were called, the three that I've now done. But they're really about a specific topic and just really helping people understand that topic. So I think, for 45 minutes to an hour, women particularly can sit and watch and enjoy something like that. But the advice I was kind of given, if my audience was men, was to make them really short and sharp. So they're very different, which I'm really excited about. And they're only 15 to 20 minutes. A few are a bit longer, like Prof. Noakes has done one. And of course, he can talk for 5 hours.
2 hours, 5 hours.
That's right. This is a little bit longer, but they're all designed really for people who are on the fence, who don't really just don't know how to start, don't understand what it means to optimize health, don't have access to all the information that we in this space, do now. So many people we know don't have access to that. So I wanted these people, these men, to share, what their view of health was, what their light bulb moments was, why health matters to them. I think sometimes we're just so busy living, we don't actually stop and really take note of, yes, we want health, but why do we want it? What are all the things that health give us, and what do they allow us to do? So I really wanted it to be a heart as well as head. So there's knowledge, but there's also, that connection with, what they've learned and why it matters to them. So I've loved it. Some people have done their own little presentation and sent it in to me, but most of them have been interviews. So I'm not in it, I'm editing myself out, but the question's obviously there and people will just be able to sit back and hopefully just, I think if there's like 2 or 3 that really resonate, that will be enough for them to go, okay, well, maybe I could try just that one thing or, look at that I've never looked at before. And that's really, why I'm doing it. I've got 4 boys and a husband. So I have a lot of men in my life and I'm passionate about them. I don't tell them what to do, but I want them to have access to the right information so they can make the choices. And, it breaks my heart that so many people will go to a doctor still and never, ever, ever be told, well, that we can change your diet and look at these areas of health and that might help you, get better without this medication or that medication. So I just want people to be empowered enough to know there are more opportunities available than what we're sort of told in the mainstream.
But Tracey, you are doing these things, but I mean, why? What's possessed you to even do this? What's your backstory? How did you even get into this?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been in this space for nearly 10 years. I'll be 50 next year, and when I turned 40. I was following the guidelines. I was a personal trainer. I thought I was doing everything right, but I was diagnosed with fatty liver and prediabetes and I was overweight. I just sort of thought, whoa, what's going on? I'm eating the healthy whole grains and low fat. And, I tried, like everybody did, I tried to cut my fat and my calories and just increase my exercise and just sort of kept getting nowhere and just getting fatter and obviously fat in my liver. And I was lucky enough to find someone in Melbourne who was one of the pioneers, in Australia. He's not very well known now in the space, but he just happened to be someone that I went to get some tips. And he pointed me in the direction of Prof. Tim Noakes and a few other people back then. I was just like, right, I have to learn this. I have, obviously what I'm doing is not working. So, I've got a lot to live for. I had another child after that as well. And my husband was actually, he's 10 years older than me, but he was actually in a very similar position. He was starting to gain weight as well. And he was getting, you know, some precancerous things going on down, you know, different stuff going on. And we're like, you know, this isn't, you know, anyway. So we both went on this journey and we haven't stopped. And, you know, it's just been, as you know, once you see something new and you put it into action and you feel the results, it's like, wow, I want everybody to have the opportunity to see what I've seen. So I went from, you know, I reversed all of that, but I still had stuff that, you know, I had to address. I mean, I had been an emotional eater, probably a sugar addict from a very young age. My mum did the best she could, but I was, you know, fed on sugar. And of course, we ate dinner to get dessert. So there was always sweet stuff in the house. And I also went through a divorce with 3 young children in my mid-30s. And I lent on drinking. You know, I spent 10 years having, you know, what led to mostly a bottle of wine every night. And even though I started changing my diet and I started to see results, there was still these things here. I'm like, oh, there's something, you know, I've got to address with those as well. And, you know, I think that just kind of propelled me even further to heal from within. And, you know, I started finding different puzzle pieces for me. And at the same time, I started coaching. So I did a little bit of personal training and coaching together, but I was like, no, the coaching is really where I want to go. So yeah, that was about 7 years ago now. And as I've learned, I've, you know, brought my clients along with me and tried different things and learned different things. And it's just, you know, it's just an ongoing evolution. And the hub, you know, the Low Carb Lifestyle Hub, which is where I do these summits through, that was born really, it started with just this, hey, I'd like to put on a women's health summit that is actually by women for women, because I think in the, you know, health traditionally has been quite male dominated. And, you know, there's so many things that we talk about, but from a male perspective, and wouldn't it be nice just to see it from a female perspective? And what are the differences that women can be aware of? Because we are different, you know, I mean, I think we have to acknowledge that. So that started that. And then I thought, well, I just want a platform that I can put these on. And, you know, the hub came second. And, you know, I was explaining it to someone the other day. I think that it's my big picture business, that if all it is that family can go to it and, you know, find the right information, then it's worth all the effort for me to put it on. And I can't, you know we can't force people to see something they're not ready to see, but at least if the information is there, and they have access to that, that's, you know, a massive part that, you know, they may not have had before. So that's why I do it. I'm very driven. I'm very passionate. I just want people to know, as you guys do and all the work that you do, I just want people to have the right information to make their choices on. And I think there's so many barriers out there for people to get access to that. You know, as we know, with vested interests and dogma and dietary guidelines and all this stuff that really just get in the way, I think, of people getting the right information. And so I'm just little on me, but, you know, I think that mama bear, I suppose, is just behind the drive I have to get it out there. And I have no designs on how it's received other than I put my heart and soul into it. And if it helps someone, fantastic. If it's not for someone, well, then that's not on me. I can't help that either.
One of the things that interests me is you know, in the very first event that we did in 2016, we had Jackie Everstein come and speak. And we had her speak specifically about women's issues, right? And so it was like halfway through the conference, and we teed it up, and I kind of introduced her and got her up there, and I was expecting all the men to leave. And it actually turned out that the men got more out of it than the women did. It was like afterwards, like, oh wow, okay, now I understand this, you know. It was really useful. So I know you were talking about doing a women's thing for women, but what sort of things are you addressing, differences between men and women, and that are you are you trying to highlight and resolve, I suppose, is one of the words, maybe to try give ideas about how that people can address this. And I think as I said, I think it's more interesting for the men to know this, to know how they can help and handle the women in their lives if they know what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's interesting what you've said, because I think, there was a lot of men, particularly male practitioners, that did sign up to watch it as well. I think, most men in the space, a lot of their clients are women, because women traditionally are the ones that are much more proactive in getting the help that they need, in terms of their health. So there was that aspect there. But also, I mean, if you look at just little things like, cardiovascular disease, the presence of a heart attack in a female can often show up very, very differently to, a male. And, that's just kind of not common knowledge. It wasn't for me. So, one of the doctors that did the talk on women and heart disease, she started by saying, women are just not men without a penis. We are fundamentally very different. And we have a lot of, different stuff. So I think just being aware of that is really, really important. But also, I think it's just a space to create a space where, like, it is important, just as important for men, just to be, in a space where, there's no judgment, there's just curiosity, there's no, having to be anything other than who you are, and just show up to learn something new. And that's, I suppose, really the essence behind what I do. It's just, I try and encourage people, in my introduction, to just come with nothing on your mind. Don't come already looking like to confirm what you know. Human beings love to do that. We know our mind loves to kind of tell us that we're safe with comfort and the knowledge, and we already know, but that kind of closes us off to seeing more things. So, we can learn from everybody, and that's one of the things with the men's summit, doing the interviews. I mean, I've been blown away with every single one. I've gotten off and I've learned something new from every single one of them. And, I'm not new to this, but I guess the mindset is I'm a continuous learner and I'm always a beginner. And if I can help people see that as well, then they'll be more likely to go off and be open to change and open to putting into practice some of the things they're learning, instead of, listening to the mind that, I already know, and that's wrong, and I'm not going to, well, maybe if you just put it over here for a little bit, you might see that there's something in it for you, or, you could give it a go. You can unlearn and you can learn new things, but we kind of got to allow ourselves to get into that space to do it. So yeah, I mean, it's just been a huge amount of fun. I mean, it's funny, I have no plan. I have no goal for where it's going to go. I'm in that, I'm obviously passionate about my own work, and I'm loving what's going on there and what I'm creating there. And it's the same for this. I think where it goes, I don't know. I think I'm only one person. I've only got a limited amount of time and energy, like we all do. And, I just reassess it after each one and see, well, so I've had people, and you've got to do one for teenagers now. I want you to do one. What about coaches? And I'm like, yeah, we'll see. We'll just take it one at a time.
Well, yeah, I mean, we started out putting on one conference in San Diego, and
we got the same thing.
Now we've got another nonprofit that's spawned from this, and we've got, I think this is coming up our 18th conference that we've done and all of that, and we had
we were going to do one.
Any of that stuff. We've got our website's got training and all sorts of stuff on it that it just evolved into that. You just got to start doing something, and then stuff happens after that. Can
I take that bit out to put in the men's health? That's exactly it. You just do something. We so often just sit in what we're doing because of that fear, or we don't know, or we think we got to know it all, or just do something, one thing, and the snowball of that's kind of out of your hands in a lot of ways. I think our job is just to show up and do and try and experiment, and everything kind of just eventuates and flows on from there. And yeah, it's fun doing it that way as well.
And even if you only end up doing that one thing, you still have contributed to the space and help. I guarantee you somebody will have got something useful out of it, or a number of people, more than likely. And And if it doesn't evolve into a much bigger thing, then so be it. You've at least still made your contribution, which is cool.
Yeah, but if you literally tell someone, start with one thing, and they pick that one thing as, I'm going to cut out soda for this week, or you say take it day by day, or you say 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, whatever, pick that, or cut out candy, or whatever it is that's going to not be easiest, because I don't think that's the key. Don't necessarily make it, doesn't have to be the easiest thing, but that one thing that someone says, you know what, I think I could do this. You don't have to cut out everything. Not everybody has to go complete carnivore on day one, right? And only eat meat and nothing else, because they're not that. And we've all kind of, I know when Doug said to me, and we should talk about this as doing it as a couple, because that's brilliant that you've had your husband to be able to do it with you. Because when Doug said to me, I think he was the one that decided and said, we're going to pull the trigger and do this. And I've made a list, and we're going to the grocery store. And I always say this, I always have to say this. I said, wait, you're going to the grocery store with me and you have a list?
Love it.
And he wasn't doing the cooking as much. I was doing the cooking mostly. So that's evolved.
Not at all. You couldn't get me in the kitchen if you paid me.
And with Doug, he didn't even know how to turn the oven on. I was like, can you check that in 20 minutes and turn? And he's like, what? I remember I do that. I'm like, are you serious?
No,
this is the
I have
button.
to kick you out of the kitchen now.
Now he kicks me out, and he cooks all the meat. Are those some of the things you also started with, or did you kind of start right off cold turkey with stuff? Or
we definitely did it in a sliding scale. So we took, the sugar, because at the same time I found there's an author in Australia called David Gillespie. He's actually a lawyer, but he's written some incredible books, and one of them was Sweet Poison. And funnily enough, that book was actually shown to me 2 years prior by a client, and I did the whole, we need sugar. We need
sugar.
Totally closed off. And because now I understand it, but back then I didn't understand. My mind was just not wanting me to even consider change. Our mind has these beliefs, and it does everything it can to keep us locked into those. And I just followed that. So I didn't even look at it. And then obviously once my mind was starting to open a little bit to possibly, hey, I was doing the wrong thing. I don't have the right information, because clearly, it's not helping me. That was the start for us. So we probably did that for 18 months. I had young family and kids, and, my oldest is nearly 21, but back then, so he was 10, and then it went down from there. Pretty full on. And then we got to a point where we're like, yeah, we could notice some difference, but hey, there's still, we needed to go further. So that was when the rest of the carbs and stuff like that came out. And I never really drank soft drinks, as a personal trainer. I understood, I don't think anyone would say to you, oh, that's healthy. I understood processed foods and that stuff wasn't healthy, but I didn't know that feeding my kids porridge with flavored yogurt and sultanas and honey and a fruit juice before they went to school, I didn't know that wasn't healthy. Like, oh my gosh,
you didn't know that was all sugar, and then in 2 hours they were going to be cranky and hungry at school and not being able to focus.
When I learned that, I had to do the whole, what have I done? I'm sending my older kids. My little boys have had a totally different journey because I knew better with them, but with my older kids, 15 teaspoons of sugar before they went to school? Oh my goodness.
Well, that's what you were doing. So how else would you have known anything different?
That's it. See, I didn't know. And that's why, I suppose I'm passionate for people to find out. Mm-hmm. Yes, there's challenges to, want to see new information, and that has to come from within people. And also acknowledging that the fear of change. And of course, change is hard. It's not meant to be easy. We're meant to be doing safe stuff. And that looks like doing the same things over and over again. No risk, no being thrown from the tribe. But in the world that we live in, we have to see beyond that. And we have to kind of feel the fear and do it anyway. Otherwise, we'll just keep doing the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah, I know. And we, how many, I love it that you said a lot of practitioners attended the summit, because it's the same with us. When we first decided to do the conferences, we kind of, our intention was do them for everybody. And then right away, we started realizing how important it was to reach the health professional, the doctor, the PA, the nurse practitioner, the nurses. And then it even went to the social workers and the physical therapists, and then the regular lay people, individuals who actually did what you did and what we did and found it so empowering and so powerful to help us that we wanted to share it with others. So they've, so many people have turned to coaching, and it just became such a focus. But sadly, for the doctors that we meet and the nurses that we meet and all the health professionals, they found themselves sick. And that's heartbreaking when a physician who's like Andrew Haswari, who was one of our first metabolic health practitioners accredited through the SMHP. And he wrote this letter about how he'd been teaching diabetes classes, not only to other professionals, but to patients as well. And then he realized that he was getting diabetes himself. And he's like, wait a minute, I'm teaching diabetes treatment and care, and I myself am getting it. Obviously, I'm teaching the wrong thing. Like, wait a minute. So to realize that we've learned the wrong thing is hard, and it's hard to change. But I'm glad that you're teaching others, and join into this wonderful community of people, of caregivers, of people who really care, to make information available, to raise awareness, and give people the hope and the options to make the change. I was saying earlier today when I was explaining this to somebody who's new to the conversation, we can lead a horse to water, but we can't make them drink. But if we can inspire them to drink, or, to make the changes, and try to let them know, like, how much better you felt. You let people know how much better you felt, or tell the story of, like, what you say, hope and healing. Who doesn't want that, right?
That's right. And, I think too, it's knowing that I didn't, I told you, I paid no attention to this the first time I heard it. And I think that's a very normal human experience as well. Like, some people, they've got to hear it 10 times, but each time unknowingly, there's probably a little seed being planted, and, allowing people the space they need to come to it when they're ready, because we don't know what's going on inside someone's mind. This process could be anywhere, we will never know that. And that's why I'm not afraid, I suppose, of putting out the same message over and over, because maybe that 10th time someone's ready to hear it, or it lands with them and they're ready to make the changes and face the fear. Because, I think that's a huge, huge part of it, overcoming that. Imagine, as with the doctors you've worked with, and a lot of the doctors that I'm connected to, they've been taught most of their life. They've invested a university degree and have then practiced in this a certain way. Huge amount to turn around and say, hey,
I may have been
maybe, wrong. Maybe it's wrong. And, I think we have to acknowledge the difficulty of that and allow people, I said, the space to do that on their own terms. But then as well, it gets to the point where, as Ben Bickman says, well, it was forgivable on so many levels because this is what we knew back then and that's what people thought. But there has to come a point where we say, okay, it's time to look, like you can't decide for people, and holding back information. I've heard so many stories of practitioners saying, well, they won't change. They've got a 70-year-old woman or man in front of them who's diabetic and all these medications, and they kind of hear about, low carb and nutrition, but they do that. They won't change. And but how can you decide that for someone? That's not your job to decide that. You need to give people the right information so they can make their choices. As you say, you can't force people to do anything or see anything. You can't make them drink, but you absolutely need to take them to the trough. You've got to do that and give them that information.
That's how many 70 and 75, even 80-year-old people have you seen that started this and made a change that made a huge difference?
Actually, a lot.
Right? People are never, that is such a brilliant thing to make a point of, because people are never too old to make a change and do something, because we have seen it over and over and over again, right?
Yep. I've seen it personally with my mum. I mean, she's the one most closest to me that, 75, she started, and now at 80, she's off all her medications. She's lost 15 kilos and she's got a new lease on life. And I mean, that's, that's the bit, made me tear up. I mean, that's everything to me, like, as we know, family can be difficult. I think a lot of people do struggle with family that are not interested, and that's okay. I just say, well, you keep the door open, you keep the bridge there, and you need to just give people space, but you don't change what you're doing and you don't change your message, even if it makes them a bit uncomfortable. Be strong and be proud and be true to what you want to do, but allow them to do, their journey as well.
Yeah, well, that's an ongoing saga for both of us. Like, our parents don't want to know anything about it, and that just those last couple of days, there was on one of the email threads that I'm involved in with quite a lot of high profile people in the space, the whole issue of somebody having a problem with a parent or something that had severe, or a friend that had severe vertigo, and all this help that came in talking about how very strict glycemic control could solve this. And it's another thing that my mother suffers with really badly. And Dr. Rob Sivas actually was the one that chipped in significantly in that discussion. And talking about it's got to do with inflammation of I forget the name of the nerve, but some nerve in your middle ear or something. And that the minute you go strict glycemic control,
the inflammation
that neuropathy goes away, and the inflammation clears up, and if the vertigo goes away. So again, I know my mother won't listen.
We've all had we've had a few family members try things and then stop, and we've had a few family members who we know it would make a huge difference to have a family member with really severe hypoglycemia. Should make a humongous difference, but not able to do it. So unfortunately, we'd like to see that. But I wanted to go back. You touched on that conversation's reminding me. I think a lot of people think that low carb is just for weight loss, a weight loss diet. And we just talked about like 5 different things, and we didn't even mention anxiety and depression and mood and energy levels, that people don't realize that this can help with. I know that you're inviting many people to both of your, all of your summits that you've met that have touched on a little bit of something, like what for men, for example, are coming up in the talks that might address something that men would have thought nothing about, and that might be talked about during the summit.
Well, great question, because, I think whatever gets people in, but you're right. I mean, the weight loss is the tip of the iceberg. It's like, compared to all the benefits that we can experience.
Like a symptom of all the other things.
Well, that's right. But of course, we wouldn't know that. Well, people don't generally know that until they do, right? Because we're so conditioned to be focused on, weight. And I do think that is something that is a bit of a trap, and that's what people sort of fall off and in and out a little bit because they're looking just for that, and the focus is just on this tiny bit rather than all the benefits. So in the like, I think a lot of the guys in the summit have had weight loss issues and health issues. And as you touched on before, practitioners tend to be, when they either have it personally with themselves or a family member, that kind of is a bit of a spark, a bit of a turnaround point to finding all this. So there was there's a doctor in Sydney called Dr. Alex Petruszewski, who is a part of Sydney Low Carb Specialists. So his talk is, he did it himself. So he wanted to focus on cancer. He's very, very passionate. He's done a lot of work in what he sort of talks about cancer treatment, but now he's obviously his passion and his knowledge is looking at more prevention. So he's done a whole talk on his top 10 tips, how to prevent cancer. So they're the do not, make sure you don't do, and make sure you do. So that, it's got, don't even think he talks about weight in that at all. So, but yeah, I think, you know, when we are metabolically well and we're fueling our body and our brain in a way that it just makes us, I suppose it gives us the energy, like the premium fuel, you know. So we're putting the premium fuel in the tank and we give it time to reset or to heal if we've been putting, you know, the wrong fuel in for a long time. We need to give it that time to readjust. But once we start to feel that and we feel this sense of brain fog lift that most people don't even know they're living with, right? It's just this, oh, that's normal, living in this cloud, when we know it's not. It's the spark. Like, to me, that's the beginning, you know, and for me, that totally changed and transformed the trajectory of my life, just feeling that and seeing what was possible when I was able to, I suppose, remove all the thinking I had about focusing on weight loss and remove all the fact that my brain just kept going over and over and over in this sludge. It was like, you know, going through quicksand all day, every day, like I was hungover. You know how we feel when we're not fueling ourselves well and we're not well. And then when you start to feel all that lift, you're like, oh, I've got all this space. I've got all this brain space now to you know, to do different things and to do more things in life that I love and that I want to do, and that actually are really important for our health, like, you know, going out and engaging with people and in community things. And so that's the spark. So if weight loss is what gets people in, that's not what keeps people in.
That's true.
I think, you know, the weight loss thing, sometimes we have to accept, particularly women over, you know, maybe women over 40, or, you know, I don't think this is black and white, but I think it can be harder for women. And we've got this picture of what we were when we were 15 or 20, and maybe we want to get back to that. And, you know, I kind of say, well, you know, that's kind of not on you. So let's just put that to the side and focus much more about the healing and the health and doing things in our life that bring us joy and doing things that we want to do, because then, you know, we feel good. When we feel good, we're more likely to make better choices. You know, it all sort of has that flow on effect for it. So yeah, I think in the from a male perspective, there's been a few. Ben Bickman talked about, you know, erectile dysfunction, you know, metabolic issue in the vascular sort of system.
And testosterone, low testosterone. Yeah, I don't think a lot of is not talked about. It's probably a little taboo.
It's not, but Dr. Pran Yoganathan, he's a gastroenterologist in Sydney, and very, very passionate about the political and barriers for people. Now, I'm saying something that I have just a tiny doubt that we may have talked about this at the end of it when we stopped recording, but I'm pretty sure he brought in the issue of low testosterone in men as being a real problem. And we also talked about the fact that, you know, the social pressures that, you know, young people are under to conform to what is seen as, you know, helping the planet and not eating meat, and, you know, this political push for, you know, that if we eat meat, we're not, you know, we're damaging the environment and we're damaging our health, you know, all that stuff that we're up against. He sees that in young men that come to see him because they're unwell, they've got poor gut issues. But, you know, they're like, well, you know, that's the only way I can score, or I can, you know, get with a woman if I'm vegan, because they don't like it if I eat meat. And, you know, because I've seen that so many times. It's amazing, you know, what the perception is. And I think that's his big thing. You know, he talked about how we have to be really strong, you know, all this stuff that's going to come to us and all these pressures that young people are under to conform.
That's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking. Yeah. And that guilt trip that people are getting about not fueling their bodies with meat and the amino acids and the protein that they need from animal protein, unfortunately. And, you know, people don't want to eat Bambi, of course we don't, but we have to fuel our bodies, and we can't, if people can't sustain and live, fuel their bodies and fuel their brains with just plants alone, they have to not have a guilt trip about, you know, eating it as eating food, you know, and nutrition. It's just that guilt trip, it breaks my heart. And to see people be sick because of it.
That's right. And the interesting thing that Pran also talked about was, you know, we talked about how for our generation, you know, like hitting 40 was kind of the mark where things started to go south. And, you know, I asked him, well, are you seeing this happen earlier and earlier? He said, yeah, absolutely. And he talked about a study that has been done. He goes, look, this was in rats, but this is what I'm seeing, you know, because we know inside a woman is the next generation. And the next generation, you know, like they're kind of all in the ovaries, and they've done studies feeding glycophosphate, you know, the chemical that they spray on.
Oh, the pesticide.
The pesticides.
Yes.
Glyphosate.
So they're, yes. And they've sprayed it on that first generation of rats. Those rats got really sick, but they didn't, the second and the third generation didn't get sprayed. The second generation was a bit sick, but the third generation was the sickest. So it's you know, this is the thing. What we don't realize is that future is being affected by what we consume, because that's, you know, particularly for women but also men as well. You know, the quality of their sperm is directly linked, you know, to their diet and their lifestyle. So again, do we take the time to think of these? I don't think people really put the handbrake on and slow down enough to consider this. And I think if all people did, all the guys that do watch this, I know even signing up can be a barrier to sometimes for men. And I think that's just such a shame. But if they do sign up and they watch it, if all it does is help them slow down a little bit and just consider, you know, there's more to it than just me. And there's so many other factors at play here.
There's family and there's community, and there really is. It reminded me of early on, after it was the second year of our conferences, we met Brian Lenskes, Dr. Brian Lenskes. He's local to us here. We're so fortunate that, and he contacted us about 2 or 3 months after the conference in 2017 that he attended the first time. And he said, you know, I just noticed that this conference was local to me. It was literally in my backyard from my practice in his medical office. It was literally like 3 blocks away. And he says, I've already had an introduction to some of Jason Fung's work. I've been trying intermittent fasting for myself. I've been trying low carb for myself, but let me see what this is all about. He came to the conference and he said, wow, there's like what we were just saying, there's so many more benefits than just weight loss, because he was kind of interested in weight loss. And there's research scientists and clinicians talking about it, and people doing it in their practice and talking about patient results, and all kinds of scientific studies going on, and at the, you know, like in the real in-depth at the cellular level kind of stuff. But then he said, I got like 11 of my patients in 3 months. I decided to do this for my patients. I got the confidence to do it. And 11 of my patients have come off insulin. He says, I got 11 patients off insulin. Then he says, no, wait a minute. They got themselves off insulin because we had a conversation, and then they went home and implemented, you know, eating differently and realizing that they don't need as much insulin. So, you know, that's an aha moment for many physicians, because I think that's their, you know, go-to medication. But his conversation with us was, I want to do more. I want to do more for my community. And I would like to, you know, have a discussion with you to see, you know, where we could take this, on how I could get involved. And that was October. By January, he decided to contact the pastor in his church and say, if I wanted to put on a seminar, would you be willing to, you know, ask the parishioners, would they come? And he said, sure. Doug and I went, Tracy, on a Sunday for his first one, and 200 people came, men and women, some children. And then they did the same talk on a Monday night. So anybody who couldn't come on Sunday, come on Monday. They got 200 people. For 6 weeks, they got about 200 people each presentation. There'd be 2, 3, 4 maybe presenters, Brian Lenskes included. And at the end of it, we all sat in the audience and did testimonials. And this woman stood up and she said, I just want to thank you all for making my husband this has made my husband a nicer person. And this has literally changed our lives and our marriage in 6 weeks. And we were kind of like, well, why do you think that is? You know, and she's like, well, he comes home from work and he's not exhausted. So men have a lot of, it made me think what you were saying. Men have a lot of pressure. They're the breadwinners. You know, they feel like they need to take care of their whole family and work really hard, and come home and exhausted. So then they don't have time. And we all want to have time after work to do the things we like to do. So parents want to have time to come home and spend with their children, and spouses want to come home, or significant others, and spend time with, you know, the people they love, and not be hangry and tired and exhausted and cranky. So I guess that part really changed for him, and maybe there was more to it. You know, you were talking about love life, and, you know, maybe there was more to it there, but, you know, we didn't go into depth, but you know, we didn't get into real detail. But I think it was just that he's a nicer person, was what she said, when he comes home from work, which I think
which makes total sense, doesn't it? When we know what's going on with the brain, with what we eat. You know, if we're eating the standard, you know, high carbohydrate, low fat, well, our brain is not going to do very well. And we get
those ups and downs are really terrible.
Yes. And actually, that's interesting with a lot of with my work, with my coaching work, we actually focus a lot on the brain, because when the brain's working optimally, the rest is kind of easy. And what's good for the brain is good for the whole body. But we're so used to just, the weight and the, you know, our metabolic physical health in our body. But this is magical, you know. Exactly, our relationships, everything can improve when we're not on this mood, just, you know, roller coaster, and this hangry, and we're not taking it out on the people that we love. Changes on so many levels. So if we focus on, you know, optimal brain diets, I mean, I've done Georgia Eads clinicians training. It's just phenomenal. And you know, when we look at it from that perspective, it just, again, see, our thinking becomes less sharp as well. It kind of just sort of, you know, all those cravings and that hunger and all that stuff just settles down a little bit. And as I said at the start, we just find we got more space for new things and fresh things. And the brain. Who would have thought? Well, you think it was separate.
I know, and I have your book here. So if anybody wants to look more into, Tracey will have information on her social media and her website. But you have today and 100 insights that will change your life. So this isn't about diet and nutrition. This is about feeding your brain and turning off your brain. You mentioned it earlier. That thoughts have a lot to do with your open-mindedness and how closed off you are, and what you think you are and what you think you aren't. And I think it's really powerful to help people on this journey.
So what about exercise? Well, how does exercise feature in your life before and after, and in terms of what you talk about to the people that you're coaching?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a very important pillar, obviously, to health, you know, to me, the benefits of exercise are mental, but also muscle. So, you know, we know, obviously, not having enough muscle, we have to combat at that as we age. And given the fact that most of us sit at a desk and are very sedentary today, that's going to look like actively doing something with weights and creating a routine where we do keep our muscles strong. But see, you know, I was a lazy personal trainer, and I realize that now because I wasn't metabolically well. You know, my body was struggling to get the energy it needs. And that's fundamentally most of the clients that sit in front of me at first. And we take that off the table to start with. You know, there's so many pressures we put on ourselves to do all these different things. We just park that for a bit. Let's get the metabolic stuff and the fuel, you know, working optimally. And then I just find a lot of them just naturally start to get more energy, and they want to look at doing more of that stuff. So yes, it's really important, but it's really, I think when you're young, you get away with so many things. But when you get older, if you're not metabolically functioning optimally, exercise can be hard. Difficult, and it's another stress. Yeah, it's another stress on the body. Yeah. And, you know, I think we have to put it in that sort of hierarchy of what do we focus on. But even if it's walking, I mean, obviously so much good stuff just being outside, you know, getting outside in nature, getting some sun, listening to the birds, looking at the beautiful world beyond, you know, this sort of lens that we tend to look at, just opening up and looking around, that just brings countless benefits. We can't ever measure, you know, the benefits to our health of doing that. And my exercise has changed a lot. You know, I used to do it because I wanted to keep my weight in check. You know,
you thought you were burning calories.
Yes. So it was really another chore. But what I do now, what I show, you know, with my clients as well, is that it's a love. I do it because I want to do it. I found the joy in what I do. So I run once or twice a week, but I just do some strength training, you know, in my day, you know, maybe 3 times a week, 15 minutes. I don't do much, but I do it to a higher level, if you like I do fatigue my muscles. And I love it. It's not like it's another, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's a chore. Mm-hmm. It's something I do because it makes me feel good. I love the feeling of feeling strong. I love the feeling of pushing myself in, you know, different ways. And it's the mental benefits of it. Again, they're just very hard to quantify for people. But when we do it, we feel it, don't we? And
I think it's so important that they do introduce it again. No, I agree that in the beginning, it's much better to get them to just focus on eating right first, and they will naturally start to feel more energetic and all of that kind of stuff, and then you can start introducing that. But as we get older, getting stronger is super important. And yes, walking and running and stuff like that. I mean, I'm a runner by trade, you know, and that's all good and well, but I was never a gym guy. But now we're being introduced to Dr. Ben and taking on his 15 minutes twice a week thing. I mean, that's all you need. And I'm stronger now than I was when I was 20, you know, and I'm heading to 60 now. And it's like, I'm genuinely stronger now than I used to be. And I think for us folks that are getting older, it's super important that we, and Ben talks all about all these studies that show that this correlation between strength and longevity, and that muscle mass and muscle strength as you get older contributes enormously to how much longer you're going to live and how much more enjoyable that living is going to be, because you're going to be functioning properly, and, you know, physically and your brain function. So
and that's it. That's exactly the message that I want people to see. You know, that they're the things we don't sort of think about, especially when we're younger, but we need to think about that stuff. You know, I don't want to be in a nursing home and not being able to take care of myself if I can avoid that. You know, for me, I want my kids to go off and have their own life. They're not there to be able to look after me as I age. But the sad, you know, it's just so fundamentally sad what we feed our elderly, you know, population. I had an aunt. She fell over. She was in her 70s. She didn't eat much meat. She was quite overweight. Her muscle, you know, more fat, not enough muscle. And she tripped and she fell and her body went into shock. And 3 days later, she died. You know, like that happened in COVID, and none of us could go to the funeral because of COVID. It was just heartbreaking. She was on her own, you know, like heartbreaking. So again, people don't know. You know, they don't have access to the right knowledge. But when we do get access to that, we've just got to take it and do what we can and start exactly as you say. And Ben's fantastic. I love the stuff. That he shares. I've definitely started to incorporate some of that myself, you know, which is really
awesome.
good.
And when you come to San Diego next year, you'll get to meet him in person.
Yes, I said to Tia that, you know, because I turned 50 on the 17th of August, which is right in the middle of, I've looked at the dates for next year.
Of the conference,
Yes.
It's a week earlier this year.
We're going to have a big birthday celebration.
Well, I haven't asked my husband yet. Not that I need to ask you, but I haven't told him, because if I go, I'm going to come for 2 weeks. So he has to obviously organize the kids. But
Happy
yeah, that's
birthday
the goal.
to you.
Yeah.
It'll be your birthday present.
Yeah,
No,
that's what I think. What a great present.
This has been fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing with us your passion, because I think, that there's so many people that I come across we come across in this space. Like once you see what it does for you, you can't help yourself but try to teach other people about it, because it's just made such a phenomenal difference to your life. But some people find a way to do more and reach more people, and you one of those people. So much appreciation for all the work that you put into it. It's awesome.
Yeah, and obviously right back to you guys. I love the work that you do. I think collectively we are all making a difference, and we just keep going, and we keep touching people when they are ready to be touched. And I thank you for having me on and for letting me share. I do love to talk. I love to share what I know, and I'll share with anyone who wants to listen. So hopefully it's been helpful for someone.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure it will be.
much.
Now, and if people want to get hold of you in order to just chat to you or engage you in some kind of coaching or whatever, do you want to just, we'll put it in the notes as well, but just talk about how people can reach you, and also about the name of your book and where they can get it and all of that.
Yeah, so it's definitely all on my website. So just tracymcbeath.com.au, and I've got a lot of free stuff on there. So I've been building that up for many years now. Okay. And, like you say, most people in the space, we don't want to have information behind barriers. We want people to have access to it as much as they can. I don't do individual coaching anymore. I do run my groups. So I have a group for people who are wanting to learn. It's called The Art of Thriving, because I do think in this modern world it is an art that we have to learn.
Yeah.
But I also do group coach mentoring. So I have a group of coaches that I mentor on impact. It's sometimes we can feel really isolated doing what we're doing. So I just try and make communities so people, do feel like they've got that connection. But yeah, it's all on my website and my book as well.
If people want to join any of those groups, are they welcome and able to do so?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Because that's often a nice environment, Sometimes that's a nice thing when you're there and you can sit and not talk to people if you don't want to, but you can participate in an enjoyable conversation if you want to.
Yes.
So you can take from it what you need.
That's right. Awesome. Like that non-judgmental, non-threatening, the environment that it runs the same every week. So we meet twice a week on Zoom. One session is more teaching, one session is more coaching, but they're all recorded. If you can't make them live, people can watch them afterwards, and but it's up to them. Some people are out walking, they have their camera off and they're just listening. Some people actually actively engage. Sometimes they don't, like there's no rules. I'm here, this is your journey. And I think that's been really helpful. There's been some people in the group that have had some incredible transformations, and, so I don't take credit for that because I'm just pointing them. I can imagine,
and people are seeing like, hey, like there's other people that have the same issues as me, and there's in those group sessions they realize that they're not alone.
Yeah,
and I think that's when that epiphany happens, that's powerful, because it's now it gives you hope that you're not just useless, and that other people are struggling as well, and so now you can work with them and take inspiration from them to maybe help yourself. I think that's awesome.
Again, you can't quantify that, being able to see that, hey, it's not my fault, I'm not on my own. That's a very, there's other people feeling that too, because again, we love to think it's just me, that, I'm the only one experiencing it, but you're not alone. And that's the first thing I say, you're not alone. We're here. And you'll hear when people do share just how much of that resonates with you. And, for that moment, you can say, well, okay, so then I'm not broken, or I'm not, there's nothing wrong with me. I just need to see something else and try something else. And that will change the way I feel. Like it's Yeah, it's very powerful. The group is very powerful. It's the best thing I've ever done. I've only done that for 6 months ago. I started the groups and I love it. It's really good.
Well. Okay, well, that's brilliant. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you. I didn't realize Pam hadn't told me that you talking about coming out in August. That'll be brilliant. I'd love to meet you.
Well, we better not break the secret to her husband this way, because that might not be.
I'll have to tell him before this comes out.
If you want us to cut it out, let us know.
Yeah, we'll warn you when we're thinking about airing it, so you can
Okay.
drop the bombshell
Conversation.
before it goes live.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
Coming soon.
do you want to tell people the dates of the Men's Health Matters
Yes.
series?
So the way they work, very similar to the Women's Health Summit. So, you can sign up for free, but you get access just for 24 hours it's run over 3 days. The first day is the 12th of November, and then it's the following weekend, which I think is the 19th. Is that right? I think the following Saturday.
I think I saw the 20th. Okay, so you're going to do
19th and the 20th.
one day on one weekend and one day on the next
Yes.
weekend.
I was going to do three Saturdays in a row, again, to spread it out and just give people time to breathe in between. But I'm going away, and I didn't want it to be going, I don't want people having trouble, with anything while I'm away. So, but if you can purchase it, so it's $49 Australian, which in US money is very small. And if people that do purchase it, they get access to all 3 days from the 12th of November. So, but like the summits, they're still available. It's just put together as something that is happening, all pre-recorded, but it's happening on these dates. You can watch it for free, but if it's something that you want access to, it'll be available, anytime.
Okay.
After
Cool.
the 12th.
Well, let me see if I can get this out next week.
That would be so good.
And then at least, if people are listening, it might hopefully get a few more bums in seats there for you.
That would be brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Tracey, thank you very much.
We hope it goes well, and I hope it reaches
Thanks,
a lot
guys.
of people, and brings some new light bulbs and some new information to more people.
The light bulbs. So cool. Thank you. Oh, so great. You guys are awesome. Love you both so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll see you next year.
Tracy.
Yes, definitely. I can't wait.
Okay, cheers. You've been listening to an episode of the Low Carb USA podcast. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/lowcarbusa.